Alright, so picture this. Germany. What comes to mind? Probably some epic beer gardens, right? Giant pretzels, maybe some seriously fast cars on the Autobahn with no speed limits, a driver's paradise. And yeah, sausages, lots and lots of delicious, probably unpronounceable, sausages. If you think Germany is only about beer, sausages, and no speed limits on the Autobahn, think again. Because let me tell you, beneath that surface of efficiency and good times, there's a whole other layer of rules, a complex web of social codes that can trip up even the most seasoned traveler. It's like an instruction manual for life that everyone got but you. Now, I'm not talking about just simple etiquette, like saying bitte and danke. Oh no, we're diving deeper. We're talking about things that can make a friendly gathering go silent, or turn a casual comment into an international incident, or even, and I'm not kidding, get you into a bit of trouble with the law? Germany has some strict and, let's be honest, pretty unusual social codes that aren't written on any tourist pamphlet. These are the unwritten rules, the cultural landmines, the things that make Germans nod knowingly while the rest of us are scratching our heads, wondering what just happened. So get ready, because we're about to peel back the curtain on 15 German taboos that will genuinely shock you. This isn't just to scare you, it's to arm you, to enlighten you, to make sure that when you're in Deutschland, you're not the one causing a record scratch moment. From the beaches to the birthday parties, from casual conversations to crucial historical no-go zones, we're covering it all. Trust me, you'll want to take notes, because some of these are real head scratchers, and knowing them can make all the difference between a fantastic trip and an educational one. Alright, let's start with the heaviest one, the absolute, unequivocal #1 taboo in Germany. And it's so serious, it's not just impolite, it's illegal. We're talking about Nazi history, folks. Bringing up Adolf Hitler in casual conversation, making a Nazi salute even as a joke, displaying a swastika, don't even think about it. This isn't like in some countries where historical villains become ironic meme fodder. In Germany, the wounds of World War II and the Holocaust are incredibly deep, and the country has worked tirelessly to confront and atone for its past. They've built memorials, educated generations, and embedded a profound sense of responsibility into their national identity. So trivializing any aspect of this period is seen as a massive insult not just to the victims, but to the entire post-war German effort to build a democratic and tolerant society. It's like walking into someone's house and immediately insulting their deceased grandmother. You just don't do it. The legal consequences are no joke either. We're talking hefty fines, and in some cases, even prison time. German law, specifically Section 86A of the Strafgesetzbuch, or Criminal Code, prohibits the use of symbols of unconstitutional organizations. This includes Nazi symbols, gestures like the Hitler salute, Heil Hitler, and even certain phrases or songs associated with the Nazi regime. Holocaust denial? That's a separate crime, punishable by up to 5 years in prison. They are not playing. Imagine trying to explain to your friends back home that you got arrested in Germany for an ill-conceived joke. Not a good look. There are countless stories of tourists, completely oblivious, who found themselves in hot water for a funny photo or a stupid comment. It's a cultural minefield where the mines are very, very real. Think about it. Germany has Stolperstein or stumbling stones, small brass plaques embedded in the sidewalks in front of the last known residences of Holocaust victims. These are constant, somber reminders, so when someone comes along and makes light of that history, it's seen as trampling on that memory, on that deliberate act of remembrance. It's not about being overly sensitive. It's about respecting a nation's genuine and ongoing effort to grapple with an incredibly dark chapter. They've made a conscious choice to never forget, and part of that means ensuring that the symbols and ideologies of that era are never ever normalized or given a platform. So if you're thinking of a funny Third Reich reference, just don't. Stick to admiring the architecture or complaining about the weather like a normal tourist. The vigilance around this is immense. Even in movies or video games, swastikas are often censored or replaced in German versions. It's a level of seriousness that might seem extreme to outsiders, but it's born from a place of profound historical responsibility. They are actively fighting against any resurgence of extremist ideologies, and controlling the symbols is a key part of that battle. So when you're in Germany, remember this. The past is not just the past, it's a living, breathing part of the present, and it demands the utmost respect and caution. Any discussion of this period should be approached with extreme sensitivity, ideally in an academic or memorial context, not as a punchline or a casual remark. It's the one topic where German humor, if it exists around it at all, is so nuanced and specific that as an outsider, you're almost guaranteed to get it wrong. Germany is a country that, on the face of it, has shown remarkable compassion on the global stage, especially with its refugee policies. You might remember Chancellor Angela Merkel's famous phrase in 2015, "Wir schaffen das," we can do this. As Germany opened its doors to hundreds of thousands of refugees, mainly from Syria, this was a bold humanitarian gesture, lauded by many internationally. The legal framework is there. People are granted asylum, they are given housing, they have access to social benefits and language courses. On paper, it's a system designed for integration, a testament to Germany's commitment to human rights and its attempts to learn from its own history. It looks like a model of welcome. However, the reality on the ground for many refugees and immigrants is far more complex and often quite challenging. While they are legally settled, true social integration and a genuine feeling of being welcomed can be elusive. Many face significant social isolation. Making German friends can be incredibly difficult, as German social circles can be quite established and sometimes slow to open up to outsiders, regardless of their origin. There's a politeness, a correctness, but not always a warmth or an embrace into the deeper fabric of society. It's like being invited to the party, but finding all the conversation groups are already formed and no one quite makes eye contact with you. Then there's the issue of discrimination, which unfortunately persists. This can range from subtle biases in daily interactions to more overt difficulties in finding housing or employment, even when qualified. Imagine going through the trauma of fleeing your home, learning a new, incredibly difficult language, and then facing a quiet but persistent wall of otherness. There are numerous reports and studies detailing the prejudices immigrants face, from landlords preferring German-sounding names to employers undervaluing foreign qualifications. It paints a picture of a society struggling with the difference between officially accepting people and truly making them feel like they belong. It's a paradox that exists in many countries, of course, but it's particularly stark in Germany given its public stance. The German government invests a lot in integration programs, language classes, and initiatives to bring communities together. And there are countless Germans who volunteer their time and genuinely try to help newcomers. But systemic challenges and ingrained societal attitudes are hard to shift. The debate around immigration and integration is a constant, often heated topic in German politics and media. So, while Germany's laws might be generous, the lived experience for many refugees is a daily navigation of a culture that is still figuring out how to be truly multicultural in heart and spirit, not just on paper. It's a reminder that legal status is just one part of the equation. Social acceptance is a whole different journey. Now let's talk about something that's often whispered about but rarely understood: the adult industry in Germany. It's legal, it's regulated, and in some cities, it's incredibly visible. Think of places like the Pasca in Cologne, an 11-story brothel, one of the largest in Europe. It's practically a landmark. This isn't some shady back alley operation, it's a registered business. Prostitution was fully legalized in Germany in 2002, with the aim of improving the rights and working conditions of sex workers, giving them access to health insurance and social security. On the surface, it seems like a progressive approach, bringing a historically marginalized trade into the light and under the purview of the law. But behind the glowing neon signs of these massive establishments and the veneer of legality, the reality for many workers is often far from empowering. The phrase behind the glowing 11-story building "are nameless girls" hints at a darker side. While some sex workers in Germany are indeed independent and operate by choice, many others, particularly migrant women, are vulnerable to exploitation, coercion, and human trafficking. The sheer scale of the industry, with an estimated hundreds of thousands of sex workers, makes effective oversight incredibly difficult. Critics argue that legalization has, in some ways, made Germany a brothel of Europe, attracting sex tourism and, paradoxically, making it easier for traffickers to operate under the guise of legality. The contrast between the legal status and the lived experience can be stark. There are regulations about health checks, tax payments, and working conditions, but enforcing these across thousands of brothels, escort services, and street-based operations is a monumental task. Many women still face stigma, violence, and immense pressure. There are debates about whether the current model truly protects the most vulnerable, or if it inadvertently normalizes an industry that is inherently exploitative for many. It's a complex issue with passionate arguments on all sides. Those who advocate for the rights of sex workers to choose their profession and work safely, and those who believe the system enables and even encourages exploitation. So, while Germany has chosen the path of regulation, it's a system constantly under scrutiny and debate. The intention might have been to protect and empower, but the outcomes are mixed and often troubling. The visibility of places like Pascha can be misleading, suggesting a clean, well-ordered industry. But the stories of the individuals within it, especially those from marginalized communities or those coerced into the work, paint a much more complicated picture. It's a reminder that legality doesn't always equate to ethical practice or the absence of harm. And the nameless girls are often the ones paying the highest price in this regulated system. If you arrive in Germany on a Saturday night expecting a vibrant Sunday morning full of shopping sprees and DIY projects, you're in for a rude awakening. Or rather, a very, very quiet awakening. Welcome to the German Sunday or Sonntag, a day governed by Ruhezeit quiet hours and the Ladenschlussgesetz, or shop closing laws. This isn't just a gentle suggestion to take it easy. It's a legally enforced and culturally ingrained day of rest. Most shops, including supermarkets and department stores, are firmly shut. Forget about popping out for a forgotten ingredient or browsing the latest fashions. Sunday is sacred. The concept of Sonntagsruhe, or Sunday rest, is taken very seriously. This means no loud activities, absolutely no mowing the lawn, no vacuuming during certain hours if you live in an apartment building, no drilling, no hammering, no loud parties during the day. Even things like recycling glass bottles at public collection points are often forbidden on Sundays because of the noise. The idea is that everyone deserves a day of peace and quiet. It's a cultural value that prioritizes rest, family time, and recuperation over commerce and constant activity. For many Germans, it's a cherished tradition, a guaranteed break from the hustle and bustle of the week. The consequences for breaking these rules can range from annoyed neighbors giving you the infamous German stare to actual complaints to the authorities or your landlord, which can lead to warnings or even fines. Apartment buildings often have Hausordnung, or house rules, that explicitly state quiet hours, especially on Sundays and public holidays. It's a stark contrast to many other Western countries, where Sundays have increasingly become just another shopping day. In Germany, the rhythm of the week still has a very distinct pause button, and that button is labeled Sonntag. So, what do Germans do on Sundays if everything's closed and they can't make noise? They go for walks, visit parks, hike, spend time with family, read, or engage in quiet hobbies. Bakeries are often open for a few hours in the morning. Thank goodness for fresh Brötchen, and restaurants and cafes are usually open too. Museums and some recreational facilities might be open, but the general vibe is one of tranquility. It can be a bit of a shock to the system for visitors used to 24/7 consumerism, but once you adjust, there's a certain charm to this enforced slowdown. It forces you to relax, to find simpler pleasures, and to respect the collective need for quiet. Just don't plan on doing your weekly shop or starting a major home renovation project. Now let's talk about love, or perhaps the German precursor to it. If you're used to the whirlwind romances of Hollywood movies, or the intense rapid-fire dating games common in some cultures, the German approach to relationships might seem a bit methodical. There's often less ambiguity, fewer mind games, and a greater emphasis on honesty, and dare I say, practicality. Germans tend to be quite direct, and this extends to their personal lives. If someone is interested, they'll likely let you know in a straightforward manner. If they're not, you'll probably know that too, perhaps with a refreshing if slightly brutal honesty. One fascinating concept you might encounter is the Probebeziehung, which literally translates to trial relationship or rehearsal relationship. Now, this doesn't mean it's not serious, but it reflects a certain pragmatic approach. It's like they're saying, okay, we like each other. Let's see if this actually works in the long run before we get the whole village involved. It's less about grand romantic gestures and more about assessing compatibility, shared values, and whether your lifestyles actually mesh. It's dating with a view towards a stable long-term partnership, rather than just for fleeting excitement. Think of it as a due diligence period for the heart. This can be quite different from cultures where relationships might escalate quickly based on intense initial chemistry, only to fizzle out when practical realities set in. In Germany, there's often a slower burn. Friendships might gradually evolve into something more, or dates might be more about genuine conversation and getting to know each other deeply rather than just impressing one another. The lines between friendship and a developing romantic interest can sometimes be a bit more blurred initially, or perhaps more patiently explored. They are not necessarily dating but not in love in a casual, unfeeling way. It's more like dating to see if love and a lasting partnership are viable. This isn't to say Germans aren't romantic, they certainly can be. But there's often a foundation of realism and a desire for clarity. They value reliability and honesty, so being upfront about your intentions and expectations is usually appreciated. So if you find yourself dating a German, don't be surprised if things progress at a measured pace, or if conversations delve into practical aspects of life relatively early on. It's not a lack of passion. It's often a sign that they're taking the prospect of a relationship seriously and thoughtfully. It's love, German engineered for durability. Here's one that often catches people, especially car enthusiasts, completely off guard. Imagine it's a sunny Saturday afternoon, your car is looking a bit grimy, and you think, perfect time for a car wash. So, you grab your bucket, sponge and soap, ready to give your vehicle a good scrub in your driveway or on the street in front of your house. In many parts of the world, this is a perfectly normal weekend ritual. In Germany, hold your horses, or rather, your hosepipe. Washing your car on the street or in your private driveway is illegal in many German cities and municipalities. Yes, illegal. Now you might be thinking, why on earth would they ban something so innocuous? Well, the reasoning is typically German. It's all about environmental protection, or Umweltschutz. The concern is that the soapy water, along with oil, grease and other chemical residues from your car, will seep into the ground, contaminate the soil, and potentially pollute the groundwater. Germans take their environmental regulations very seriously, and protecting water sources is high on the agenda. So, that seemingly harmless car wash is viewed as a potential source of pollution. It's a level of environmental conscientiousness that is quite impressive, if a little surprising when it comes to suds. So, what's a car owner to do? Are Germans doomed to drive dirty cars? Of course not. They have designated car wash facilities, Waschanlagen or Autowaschanlagen. These facilities are equipped with special drainage systems and water treatment processes to ensure that the wastewater is handled in an environmentally sound way. Many of them even recycle the water, so the expectation is that you take your car to one of these approved locations. It might seem like a bit of a hassle, but it's part of the German commitment to keeping things clean, not just the cars, but the environment too. The enforcement of this rule can vary. In some areas you might get away with a quick rinse with plain water, but using detergents is almost always a no-go. If a vigilant neighbor spots you or an Ordnungsamt, that's a public order office official, happens to pass by, you could face a warning or even a fine. It's one of those rules that highlights Germany's meticulous attention to detail and its strong emphasis on communal responsibility for environmental well-being. So, before you lather up your car on a German street, just think twice and head to the nearest Waschanlage. Your car will be clean and you'll avoid any unwelcome attention. Gifting flowers seems like a universally lovely gesture, right? A simple way to show appreciation, affection, or sympathy. In Germany, it is indeed appreciated, but like many things, it comes with its own set of unwritten rules that can turn a well-intentioned gift into an awkward moment. It's not just about picking pretty blooms, it's about the numbers, the colors, and even the packaging. Get it wrong, and you might inadvertently send a completely different message than you intended. It's floral diplomacy, and you need to know the codes. First up, the number of flowers. This is a big one. Never, ever give an even number of flowers, unless it's a dozen, which sometimes gets a pass, but to be safe, stick to odd. An even number of flowers is traditionally associated with funerals and sympathy bouquets. So if you proudly present your host with a beautiful arrangement of, say, 10 roses, you might get a slightly concerned or confused look. Always opt for an odd number, 3, 5, 7, and so on. It's a superstition that's still quite prevalent, so it's best to err on the side of caution. Think of it as a small detail that shows you've put some thought into it. Next, let's talk wrapping. In many places, flowers are presented in their cellophane or paper wrapping. In Germany, this is considered a bit lazy or impersonal. The expectation is that you remove the wrapping before handing over the flowers. The wrapping is seen merely as protection for transport, not part of the gift itself. So take a moment before you ring the doorbell to unwrap the bouquet. It's a small gesture, but it signifies that the gift is from you, presented thoughtfully, rather than something you just picked up on the way. It's about the presentation as much as the flowers themselves. Color also matters. While not as strict as the number rule, some colors have specific connotations. Red roses, as in many cultures, are strongly associated with romantic love. So probably not the best choice for your boss or a casual acquaintance, unless you're trying to send a very specific signal. White flowers, particularly lilies, carnations, and chrysanthemums, can also be associated with funerals, similar to the even number rule. It's always safer to go for mixed bouquets with various colors if you're unsure, or ask the florist for advice based on the occasion. Mastering German flower etiquette might seem like a lot, but getting it right shows respect and cultural awareness, and your German friends or hosts will surely appreciate the effort. Birthdays. A time for celebration, cake, and well wishes. But in Germany, there's a very specific rule about when those well wishes can be delivered. Absolutely not before the actual day. Wishing someone happy birthday early, even just the day before, is considered bad luck. It's not just a mild preference, it's a deeply ingrained superstition for many Germans. You might think you're being thoughtful by getting your congratulations in ahead of time, but you could actually be causing your German friend a moment of genuine anxiety. It's like tempting fate, or Den Teufel and Die Wand Malen painting the devil on the wall. Inviting misfortune. The tradition is so strong that many Germans will actively avoid celebrating or even acknowledging their birthday until the clock strikes midnight, officially ushering in the special day. The practice of Feiern, which means to celebrate into the birthday, is quite common. Friends and family might gather on the eve of the birthday, and then, precisely at midnight, the toasts and herzlichen Glückwunsch zum Geburtstag, that's happy birthday, begin. But not a second sooner. It's a moment of collective anticipation and then release. Trying to jump the gun is seen as poor form, and more importantly, a potential jinx on the year ahead for the birthday person. This superstition can be quite baffling to people from cultures where early birthday wishes are common or even seen as extra thoughtful. Imagine the scenario. You send a cheerful happy birthday message to your German colleague a day early, thinking you're being efficient. You might get a polite but slightly strained response. Danke. Aber ich habe erst morgen Geburtstag, which means, thanks, but my birthday is actually tomorrow, accompanied by an internal wince. They are probably thinking, great, now I'm cursed for the year? It's a cultural quirk that highlights how different societies can have very different beliefs about luck and timing. So, the golden rule is simple. Wait until the actual day. If you're invited to a party that takes place before the birthday, it's likely a Feiern scenario, and you should hold your good wishes until the stroke of midnight. If you're sending a card or a message, make sure it arrives on the day itself, not before. It might seem like a small thing, but respecting this superstition shows cultural sensitivity and an understanding of German customs. And who knows, maybe there's something to it. Better safe than sorry, especially when it comes to someone else's good fortune for the entire next year. The simple act of crossing the street. In many cities around the world, if the road is clear, you just go, right? Pedestrian signals are often seen as mere suggestions, especially when there isn't a car in sight for miles. Not in Germany. Jaywalking or crossing the street against a red pedestrian light, what we call the Ampel, is a significant social taboo, even if the street is completely, utterly deserted. You could be standing there at 3 in the morning with not a soul around, and Germans will patiently wait for the little green Ampelmännchen, that iconic East German pedestrian signal figure, or its West German counterpart, to give them permission to cross. The adherence to this rule is quite remarkable, honestly. It's not just about the fear of a fine, although that is a possibility, though often minor. It's much more about social pressure and a deeply ingrained sense of order and rule following. If you dare to jaywalk, especially if there are other people around, be prepared for the German stare. This is a look of stern disapproval, sometimes accompanied by a tut-tut or a shake of the head. It's a silent but powerful rebuke that clearly communicates, you are breaking the rules, and we are all judging you for it. It can be surprisingly effective. One of the most common justifications you'll hear for this strict adherence is Vorbildfunktion für Kinder. setting an example for children. Even if there are no children physically present at that exact moment, the principle remains. Germans believe that adults should always model correct behavior because a child could be watching from a window or could learn the wrong habits if they see adults flouting the rules. It's a sense of collective responsibility for teaching the next generation the importance of safety and order. It's quite noble actually, when you think about it, even if it feels a bit rigid when you're in a hurry. So what happens if you do jaywalk? Besides the social shaming, you could technically be fined, though it's more likely if a police officer happens to witness it and is in a particularly rule-enforcing mood. But the real deterrent for many is the social consequence. No one wants to be the subject of collective disapproval. It's a fascinating example of how social norms can be just as, if not more, powerful than legal sanctions. So, when in Germany, take a deep breath, enjoy the pause, and wait for the little green man. It's a small act, but it shows respect for the local culture and its deeply held values of order, safety, and setting a good example. Hand gestures. They seem so universal, don't they? A smile means a smile, a wave means hello. But then you get into the more specific ones, and suddenly you're in a minefield of potential misunderstandings. The OK gesture, forming a circle with your thumb and forefinger, with the other 3 fingers extended, is a classic example. In many English-speaking countries, it means A-OK, perfect, everything's good. You might use it to signal that your meal is delicious, or that you understand an instruction. In Germany, you might want to rethink that. While it's not as universally offensive as it is in some other countries, like Brazil, where it's a very rude gesture, making the OK hand sign in Germany can be interpreted as an insult. Specifically, it can be taken to mean Arschloch, which translates to, well, asshole. Not exactly the message you were intending to send when complimenting the chef on his Wiener Schnitzel, is it? This isn't something that's offensive to everyone all the time, and younger Germans, especially those exposed to American media, might understand your intended meaning. But why risk it? The potential for misinterpretation is high enough that it's generally advisable to avoid this gesture altogether. If you want to signal that something is good or that you agree, a simple thumbs up, Daumen hoch, is a much safer and universally understood positive gesture in Germany. It's clear, unambiguous, and carries no risk of accidentally calling someone a very unpleasant name. It's a small adjustment, but it can save you from a potentially awkward or hostile reaction. It's like learning a few basic phrases in the local language. Learning basic gesture etiquette is just as important for smooth communication. This is a great reminder that non-verbal communication is incredibly culture-specific. What's perfectly innocent in one place can be offensive in another. It also highlights how easily misunderstandings can arise when we assume our own cultural norms are universal. So, when you're in Germany and feeling great about something, resist the urge to make that familiar circle with your fingers. Stick to a hearty thumbs up, a nod, or even just saying super or sehr gut. Your German counterparts will appreciate your intended positivity, and you'll avoid any unintended insults. Alright, so figuring out how to talk to people in Germany is a bit of an art. Get it wrong, and you might seem rude, way too friendly, or just like you haven't got a clue. See, in German there are 2 ways to say you. There's the formal Sie and the more casual Du. This isn't just some boring grammar rule. Nope, it's a big deal in how people get along, showing respect, who's who, and what kind of friendship or connection you have. It's not like in English where you is just you for everybody. In German, you're always thinking, should I use sei or du? And if you're not from Germany, this is super easy to get wrong. So, here's a good tip. Usually, you'll want to start with sei for anyone you don't know well. Anyone older or anyone who's kind of in charge. Think people working in shops, officials, folks you meet for work, your new boss, or even your older neighbor. And when you use Sie, you also use their last name, and if they have a title, use that too. So you'd say, Guten Tag, Herr Dr. Schmidt, or Entschuldigen Sie, Frau Müller. Jumping to du and their first name too quickly, that's a big no-no. It's like breaking a really important social rule. People might think you're being disrespectful, or that you're assuming you're closer than you are, or that you just don't get how things work here. It's kind of like walking into someone's personal bubble without asking. So, when do you get to make that magical switch from Sie to du? This is where it gets pretty interesting. Usually the person who's older or has a more important job is the one who will offer the du. They might say something like, "Wir können uns duzen," which means we can use du with each other. Or they might just start calling you by your first name and using du. Until they give you the green light, just stick with C. At work, things can be different depending on the place. Some cool new companies might use do right from the start, but older, more traditional places will probably stick to C. With people your own age, especially if you're just hanging out or at university, you might switch to do faster. But if you're not sure, it's always smart to let the German person make the first move. This whole C thing isn't about being unfriendly. It's really about showing respect and keeping a bit of space, professionally or socially, until you get to know each other better. It clearly shows how friendships and connections grow over time. If you're used to English, where everyone's on a first-name basis pretty quick, this might feel a little stiff or too formal. But trying to use do too soon can totally backfire and make people feel a bit awkward. So just be patient, watch how other people talk to each other, and if you're ever not sure, C is always the safe way to go. It shows you get it and respect how things are done in Germany, and people will really like that. If you're someone who enjoys a lively phone conversation on public transport or a booming chat with friends in a quiet cafe, Germany might require a slight volume adjustment on your part. There's a strong cultural expectation for quietness in many public places, and being overly loud is a definite social taboo. This isn't just about libraries or churches, it extends to trains, buses, waiting rooms, and even sometimes queues. Germans generally value their personal space and peace, and that includes auditory space. Making a lot of noise is seen as inconsiderate and disruptive to others. Think about a typical German train journey. You'll often notice that people are reading, working quietly on laptops, or speaking in hushed tones if they are conversing. Someone having a loud extended phone call will likely attract a series of withering glares. The silent but deadly German stare makes another appearance, or even a polite or not so polite request to keep it down. It's not that Germans don't talk. They just modulate their volume according to the environment. There's an unspoken understanding that public spaces are shared, and therefore, one should strive not to impose oneself on others, including with noise. This preference for quietness also extends to residential areas, especially during designated Ruhezeiten quiet hours, which are typically in the evenings, at night, and as we've discussed, all day on Sundays and public holidays. Loud music, parties, or even noisy household chores during these times can lead to complaints from neighbors. It's all part of a broader cultural emphasis on order, consideration for others, and the right to peace and quiet. For those coming from louder, more boisterous cultures, this can take some getting used to. It might even feel a bit restrictive at first. However, there's also a flip side. This culture of quietness means that when you do want peace, to read a book on your commute, to have a quiet coffee, or to get a good night's sleep, you're more likely to find it. It fosters an environment of mutual respect. So when you're out and about in Germany, just be mindful of your volume. Observe the general noise level around you, and try to match it. It's a small adjustment that can make a big difference in how you're perceived and help you blend in more harmoniously with the local rhythm of life. In some cultures, discussing money, how much you earn, how much things cost, your financial investments, can be a relatively open topic of conversation, even among casual acquaintances. In Germany, not so much. Bringing up personal finances, especially your salary or the salaries of others, is generally considered impolite and a significant social taboo. It's seen as prying, boastful, or simply crass. Germans tend to be quite private about their financial affairs, and direct questions about income are likely to be met with discomfort, evasion, or a polite but firm deflection. This isn't necessarily about secrecy in a negative sense. It's more about a cultural norm that values discretion when it comes to personal wealth. Asking someone, "So, how much do you make?" at a dinner party would be roughly equivalent to asking about their sex life. It's just not done in polite company. Even among closer friends, the topic of salary is often approached with caution, if at all. It's considered a private matter between an individual and their employer, and perhaps their immediate family. Bragging about wealth or expensive possessions is also generally frowned upon. There's a cultural preference for understatement. This reluctance to discuss money can extend to other areas too. For example, When splitting a bill at a restaurant, Germans are often very precise, calculating exactly what each person owes. Getrennte Rechnungen, bitte, or separate bills please, rather than making broad estimates or one person covering the whole bill with the expectation of being paid back vaguely later. This precision isn't about being stingy. It's about fairness and clarity, and avoiding any awkwardness or assumptions related to money. It keeps financial matters transparent in that specific transaction, while keeping overall personal finances private. So if you're interacting with Germans, it's best to steer clear of direct questions about their income, the cost of their house or car, or their financial situation in general. If they want to share that information, they will do so voluntarily, but it's not something to be probed. This cultural norm reflects a broader respect for privacy and a certain modesty when it comes to personal wealth. It's one of those subtle but important differences that can affect social dynamics. Focus on other topics of conversation, and you'll find Germans to be engaging and open. Just leave the bank statements out of it. Alright, we've covered some heavy topics, some naked truths, and some very quiet rules. Let's end on a slightly more light-hearted but still very important German custom. Especially if you find yourself in a beer garden or at any social gathering involving drinks. It's the art of the toast or Prost. And there's one crucial element you absolutely must not forget: eye contact. When you clink glasses with someone in Germany, you must look them directly in the eye as your glasses meet. Fail to do so, and according to popular superstition, you're condemning yourself and possibly them to 7 years of bad sex. Yes, you read that right. Bad sex. Now, whether everyone truly believes this rather specific curse is debatable, but the tradition of making eye contact during a toast is incredibly widespread and taken quite seriously, albeit often with a knowing smile. It's not just a quick glance. You make proper eye contact with each individual person you clink glasses with. If you're in a group, this can involve a bit of a dance as you ensure you connect with everyone. It's a moment of acknowledgement, a shared connection before you take that sip of delicious German beer or wine. It's a ritual that transforms a simple cheers into something more meaningful, or at least more consequential. The origin of this superstition is a bit murky, as with many folk beliefs. Some say it dates back to medieval times, when not looking your drinking companion in the eye could mean you were about to poison them. And the clinking of glasses was a way to slosh some of your drink into theirs to prove your intentions were honorable, and that your drink was safe. The eye contact was a way to gauge sincerity. Others suggest it's simply a way to ensure everyone is present and engaged in the moment of toasting. Whatever the historical roots, the 7 years of bad sex, or sometimes just 7 years of bad luck part, is certainly a memorable incentive to get it right. So, when someone raises their glass and says, Prost, or Zum Wohl, to your health, remember the golden rule. Clink, look them in the eye, share that brief moment of connection, and then enjoy your drink. It's a fun, engaging custom that adds a bit of playful seriousness to social drinking. And hey, even if you're skeptical about the curse, it's a great way to show you're clued into German social graces. Plus, who wants to risk it, right? Making eye contact is a small price to pay for 7 years of, well, not bad luck anyway. It's a charming quirk of German culture that's easy to adopt and always appreciated. We've been on quite a journey through the sometimes perplexing, often surprising, and always fascinating world of German taboos. From the absolute seriousness of historical no-go zones to the surprising freedom of FKK beaches, the quietude of Sundays, and the critical importance of eye contact during a Prost, Germany certainly has its unique ways of doing things. It's a country that values order, respect, privacy, and a good dose of directness, all wrapped up in a culture that is far more complex than just its stereotypes. Understanding these social codes isn't just about avoiding awkward moments or unintentional offense. It's about gaining a deeper appreciation for what makes Germany tick. It's about seeing beyond the surface and connecting with the values and history that shape everyday interactions. These aren't just arbitrary rules. They often have roots in German history, its legal system, or its deeply held beliefs about community and individual responsibility. Knowing them can transform your experience from that of a bewildered tourist to a more insightful observer, or even a comfortable participant. So, there you have it. 15 German taboos that hopefully haven't scared you off, but rather equipped you with some valuable cultural intel. Germany is an incredible country with so much to offer, and navigating its social landscape is all part of the adventure. How many of these taboos surprised you? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more eye-opening cultural insights. We'd love to hear your own experiences or any other German quirks you've encountered.